Hello and welcome back to week 14 of Pilates with Marilyn. I'm Marilyn Harder, Pilates instructor and master trainer. So in week 14, we're going to continue to explore our myofascial release using our roller. So if you don't happen to have a grid roller like mine with a hard, dense plastic inside with a foam on the surface, or a softer foam roller, if you are a little more sensitive, you can make one with us using a beach towel, a hard water bottle, and some things to tie with. So I'm just going to quickly show you. If you take that bath towel, fold it in half long ways like a hot dog, and again like a hamburger, we'll roll that water bottle inside and secure it. So you can secure it with any sort of long tie, such as shoelaces or a longer piece of ribbon. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to use the grid roller that I have with me today, and I'm going to start with a foot release. I like to release from the feet up because that's where I tend to hold the tension in my body, from where it meets the earth. So I will only be half in the screen, but you'll see the most important pieces. All right, setting that roller up, I'm going to shift my weight to one foot, placing the other onto the roller, making sure my weight is anchored over my standing leg, slowly rolling forward and back. This is an alternative to the trigger point ball release that I showed you in episode 7. We want to go slow and controlled, about 1 inch a second, finding anything tight or sticky, and we're going to pivot right and left in that space. Good. Make sure you're pivoting from your hip, not at your ankle. We don't want the knee to go out of alignment or tweak. Good. And let's switch to the other side. Shifting to the other leg, I'm putting a little bit of forward pressure on this foot to get a deeper release. Slowly rolling it forward and back. Putting only as much downward pressure as I can maintain, and I'm allowing my tissue to release. Now, my personal preference, if I really need a good deep release, let's pivot that foot in that sticky space, is the trigger point ball release I showed you in episode 7. This one for me is when my arches are sore. The ball is sometimes a little too intense for my foot, where this is a little nicer, a little kinder, with still releasing through that tissue. All right, coming down, I'm gonna move up the chain to my calves. So I'm gonna place my calf halfway in the center of the grid roller, and now I'm gonna feel some downward pressure. If that downward pressure already creates some sensitivity on your calves, that will be plenty. Otherwise, you can cross the other ankle on top, creating a bit more downward pressure. Now, if your ankle is on top, you want to really relax that bottom leg. Let that ankle go. So then you're curling yourself in towards your Achilles tendon, but not onto the Achilles tendon, with the top leg, and then slowly rolling it back away. Now, as you continue to grid roll, you really want to stay as relaxed with that bottom foot as possible. Remember, when we move 1 inch a second, it allows that tissue to really release under you. Find a place that's a little bit more tender than the other. So I'm going to come about halfway down, and I'm going to roll my calf from right to left. Little windshield wipers, knees. Ooh, and it's really tender on the outside of my foot. So this has to do with where you tend to bear your weight in your feet. So, ooh, that's really tender. Okay, so coming back to center, I'm going to go from mid calf up to the upper calf. And in order to do so, I'm just gonna scooch my glutes a little closer. So keeping my bottom leg relaxed, I'm gonna roll and lengthen that leg out without going behind the knee. There's a lot of, it's a junction behind the knee, the popliteal fossa. And in that junction, there are nerves, lymphatic systems, drainage, which is our lymphs. And we wanna just be very careful with that area. Good. Now, just like before, we're gonna find a tender spot and we're gonna roll from right to left. You may have noticed your body sort of sinking into your shoulders about now, so make sure you're nice and long through the crown of your head. Rolling from right to left, separating the tissue. Good. Now, we're gonna roll the entire leg. I'm gonna give you a more advanced option here by lifting yourself up into a plank. Now in this position, I'm too close, so I need to walk my hands further. So that way, as I roll the full position, I have some room. Otherwise, we can just curl that leg like we did before and find that most tender spot, which for me is right about here. I'm gonna set my glutes down and I'm gonna roll my ankle on the bottom and roll it the other way. It's sort of like brushing your hair. If you don't release your tissues, they'll get into knots. So we want to treat our fascia or interconnective tissue and our muscles like our hair. If we don't tend to it, it will go into not purposeful dreadlocks. So we want to allow them to stay released and open. All right, so now on the other side, I'm gonna find that position. Keep my bottom ankle relaxed and mid-calf curling towards my Achilles, but not onto the Achilles. And then slowly lengthening it back out. Woo, staying as relaxed and released in that bottom leg as possible. Just enjoying that relaxation and elongation of that muscle. Now finding the more tender space, I'm gonna roll from right to left. Windshield wiper those knees, right to left. Trying to find the release and relaxation of those muscle groups. And then coming back to center, scooching my glutes a little bit more forward. I'm gonna roll out towards behind the knee and then roll it back in. Still keeping a really relaxed bottom foot. My ribs are drawn in, trying to keep my shoulders back and down, and I always like to keep my nice double chin. Now finding that most tender space, rolling from right to left. So finding that most tender space, let's roll from right to left. Feeling the calf muscles separate, and come back to center. All right, walking my hands out behind me. I'm gonna lift up, otherwise you can just curl in all the way, even coming down to the forearms and elongating back out. Or you can lift to that more advanced position, rolling it on in and elongating it back out. Really thinking about alignment here. If you're in this advanced position, and finding that most tender space, and we're going to roll the ankle in one direction and roll the ankle in the other direction. All right, coming on in, the next muscle we want to release is going to be our quads. So in order to release our quads, we're going to come into a plank position. I'm going to show you an option as well if this plank position is not for you. So laying on our forearms, we're going to tuck one knee in. So if you look at my position, I'm sort of in a wide knee frog here. I'm going to tuck one knee in, and then I'm going to elongate the other leg on top. So I'm in sort of an army crawl position. So in this position, you want to be about halfway down the quads, pressing the earth away. Now I'm going to go ahead and come up and show you another position using a chair. So if that army crawl position is not for you, you can have a seat in the chair and use that grid roller across the top of your quad, putting forearm pressure down onto it and releasing by rolling with pressure to the kneecap, never on the kneecap. When I will show you the heel lifts, if you're in the chair, you're gonna rock that grid roller from right to left rather than doing the glute curls. All right, resetting myself in that army crawl position. Whoop. Slide. Resetting myself up in the army crawl position, I want to keep my toes down at first and try and relax my quads into the earth. Now, forearms are going to come out away from my shoulders. And then I want to just roll my body forward by pulling my elbows towards my hips. If you can release the toes off the floor, that's ideal. Never come onto the kneecap. And then push the forearms away as you roll back towards mid-quad. The arms should be in a number 11 position versus a pyramid for better shoulder alignment and control. Whew. This can be very tender. Pause in that most tender position and we'll do those heel curls. If you are sitting in the chair, this is where you're gonna rock it from right to left. One more. Woo! Make sure you're in a good plank position. You're not feeling this into the low back. And let's go ahead and move our way back. So I'm gonna adjust myself now. So I'm gonna go from mid-quad towards my hips. So, elbows underneath me, I'm gonna slide towards my hips. Slide that roller up towards my hip. And then draw the elbows towards the hips to slide back to mid-quad. Slower, let the tissue melt. Now, if you get lightheaded, dizzy, or nauseous, that is your body saying, this is not okay for me. Listen to those cues, maybe move into the chair. Ooh. Or take a breather. Find the most tender space, which I think I just hit it right there. And let's do our heel curls. We're elongating that quad tissue on the grid roller. Ooh. And we'll go one more. And I'm going to show you a bonus if you have the capacity to be here. You can then windshield wiper your foot from right to left, giving a deeper release of that knot. And then we'll come out of it and switch to the other side. Now, if you're emotionally or mentally groaning here, I do not blame you. It is uncomfortable. However, there's a difference between pain and discomfort. If it is sharp stabbing or shooting, that is pain. If it is just like, oh, that's a lot, that's discomfort and we can move through it. All right, elbows out in front of the shoulders. Let's draw our elbows towards our body, taking that grid roller towards the kneecap and slide it away. Now, if you're very quad dominant, which most people are, meaning that you use the front of the leg very heavily and the back of the leg and the glutes sort of superficially, like not very much, that my pronunciation was fun on that. So if you are quad dominant, which most of us are, and you use your quad, the front of the leg, more than the hamstring, which is the back of the leg, and the glute, these are really important for you. So find that sticky space and let's hamstring curl. Woo! Curling that heel towards the glutes, pointing it away. We've got one more. This side is so much harder for me because this is more quad dominant side than the other. And then I'm going to go ahead and move it on down. Okay. So finding that mid quad again. My arms are out in front, tucked underneath me. I'm going to roll towards my hip, keeping those abdominals drawn in, and then roll back towards mid quad. Keep your connections, abdominals drawn in, arms are in the number 11. I'm pushing the ground away. Breathe through anything painful or sticky. Find that most sticky space, which for me is right about here, and hamstring curl. Slow. Don't let your low back arch. Don't let your shoulders sink or disconnect. Let's go one more. Hold it at the top if you can and add that windshield wiper, which feels awful / amazing on this side. You're almost done. And let's go ahead and reach that leg on away and come up off that grid roller. We have one last release we're going to do through our lower half today, and that will finish out our episode 14. So we're going to take that grid roller and we're going to sit sideways on it, sort of side saddle. So as I sit sort of at a 90 degree to that grid roller, I'm going to bring my legs in sort of a side clam here. And I want you to roll forward or back until you kind of feel that more tender space. And I want you to pause there. We're going to take that bottom knee and we're going to butterfly it up using the inner thigh, trying to relax the outer glute. And I'm just going to hang on to my grid roller there. And if it's not painful, play with rolling down just a bit more or rolling back or forward just a bit more and finding that junction for that glute med. And I find this is just the best way to get to it. All right, as you finish number 4, let's extend that bottom leg and go into that lift and lower. Trying to stay as relaxed in the outer glute as possible, isolating into the inner thigh. And last one. Go ahead and bring those legs in and let's pivot into wet sand. Pivoting right and left, really driving into that gluteus medius, trying to release it. And last one, and you are done. One of my favorite things to do after a low body release is a mermaid, because I like to see how easily I sit into the Z-sit position. All right, so as I anchor down through the sits bones, whatever leg is bent behind me, I'm going to take that arm up. Inhale, elongating through my spine, and exhale, side bend. I'm bending that elbow, trying to keep my hips anchored. I'm going to inhale, lift that rib cage, expand through, and I'm just going to hold it here for 3 deep cleansing breaths. And last one. And let's switch to the other side. Let those legs swing around, finding that anchored position. Just notice how much more open and free that it is normally. You can always move to a chair if it doesn't feel open and free. Hand is going to anchor down on the floor, other hand draws up. Let's inhale to grow tall. Exhale, side bend. Anchor down through that hip, draw that rib cage up, and take a big inhale in through that rib cage. And exhale out all the way. 2 more good cleansing breaths. Last one. And as you come back up to center, I want to thank you for spending time with me today in release work. Release work can sometimes be emotional if we hold our emotions into the place we're releasing. So just know if you feel things bubble up, let them out. You're in the comfort of your own home, your own space. And thank you for trusting me with your self-practice. Thank you for doing your self-practice. You are worth it. Join me at corporatehippiaconnection.com for more tips and tricks to just funnel into your own self-worth. Thank you and have a great rest of your day.